We're going to look at Libya, where what is happening there is confusing, and it sheds a little light on what is happening here. The freak show, for lack of it's such a bad term that I'm going to backtrack and not use it. The circus that is the United States Congress. So in Libya, there is a man named General Khalifa Hifter. And he is leading a rebellion against, in his words, the Islamists who control the government. Members of his militia, led by another general, Mokhtar Famana, stormed the parliament in Tripoli and caused the parliament to obviously go out of session. And they came in with guns and took the place over. And the suspended parliament saying it would operate on an emergency basis. To break it down incredibly simply, the parliament is made up of Islamists and non-Islamists, and the non-Islamists spend a lot of time calling the Islamists terrorists.
Yes.
What is pretty clear is that there are some terrorists
on both sides
in there, no question.
Yeah.
This is a guy, Hifter, who worked for us in the 1990s.
He alleges, yes.
Yeah, he alleges. I have no doubt that it's true that we were working with him in some capacity, at least talk to him in an effort to depose Gaddafi.
Yeah.
While that's happening in Tripoli, what's happening over in Libya's second biggest city, Benghazi, is that Haftar himself, by the way, depending on which story you read, his name is either Hifter or Haftar, sort of a salute to Gaddafi, who had his name spelled 12
well, the
different
translations
ways.
from Arabic, of course, they don't have the same vowels as us. I've always been amazed by how you decide which to go with.
Let's just have Al Jazeera and the Guardian and the Washington Post all get together and just pick one and then stick with that.
Okay.
But either Haftar or Hifter. Well, he did live in the United States, by the way. He lived in exile in the United States, so I find it hard to believe that we didn't work with him in some capacity. He's probably telling the truth on that. So the Libyan army, which is not him, has imposed a no-fly zone over Benghazi because he, with control of Libyan planes and helicopters, making this wildly confusing because you could look in the sky and see a Libyan plane or helicopter and not know who is in charge of that plane. He has his paramilitary force backed by warplanes and helicopters. They've been pounding Islamist fighters in Libya. He's saying that he is trying to rid in Benghazi, trying to rid Benghazi of all the terrorists there. Meanwhile, the government is now imposing a no-fly zone, even though their own planes are flying over.
They don't have the capacity to enforce it.
But they're not. It doesn't appear that they have the capacity to enforce it. On Friday, his forces led attacks in Benghazi, which killed 36 people, injured another 138. And it should be a little reminder for those of us who are, reasonable about Benghazi in relation to what happened in 2012 in Benghazi, that Benghazi since 2012, since before the murder of Christopher Stevens, is an incredibly violent, dangerous place.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's utter chaos there. As you alluded to, he is not a representative of the military. He is a rebel general right now. But different sections of the military have defected, bringing with them military equipment like tanks, like these jets. I mean, if you can launch and fuel and maintain the equipment for jet bombings, I think that you're doing pretty well in terms of your rebellion. And they are able to defy the no-fly zone over the major cities there. And just think about the chaos that we're currently having there, that the parliament building with members of their parliament in session was being hit by rockets and anti-aircraft fire and was being bombed by aircraft. And yet, for the most part, in American media, you don't even see anything about this. You will see many references to Benghazi, but nothing in relation to the utter chaos militarily and in terms of their government that's going on right now.
There's an actual story happening in Benghazi now, right? It's
Maybe this is what the investigation in Congress is going to be about.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what Darrell Issa is thinking. By the way, very quickly regarding that, Thomas Pickering, who co-authored, along with Mike Mullen, the report from the State Department's independent report, and it wasn't like a Chris Christie independent report, it's an actual independent report. They hired these guys. Pickering has served as in the State Department and worked for Republicans and Democrats, and he's a respected diplomat. That's a word Republicans are unfamiliar with. But when they did respect it, he worked for some of the normal guys who don't exist anymore. And he co-authored the study, which the Inspector General has signed off on as an actual independent study. And he was on one of the Sunday shows with Al Hunt, and he said, look, I'm sensitive to it. I recognize that it's an issue of great, politically volatile issue, and I've looked at what's happening there and trying to see if there's a story there. And he said, I'm paraphrasing him, but I've got it pretty close. He said, Al, I've looked to see if there's a there, and there's no there.
Yeah.
His report is complete. We did everything we could, and he said his actual thing was, what we don't need is another congressional investigation. Yeah. We know what happened in 2012, and it was a tragedy, and now we've figured it out, and it's time to move on. There was no great fault. There was no sinister cover-up. There was no nothing.
Yeah.
So if you want to cover Benghazi, there's an actual story going on, and it relates to, as we see what's happening in neighboring Syria, with not that neighboring, but regionally neighboring. That's a full-on, I guess what's happening in Libya would be a full-on civil war, but now we've seen 160,000 people dead in Syria. It's a little bit of a wonder, in a sense, that Libya has not
devolved into that extent.
Let me put it, not that it's a wonder,
in terms of
it's good that Libya hasn't devolved into that, but obviously it feels like, as you read these stories, that it could happen.
Yeah. And as of right now, bear in mind, despite the fact that over the past 20 years, the U.S. and Libya have had numerous skirmishes, I guess is a light way of putting it, as of right now, they are an ally of ours. And oddly enough, Libya, the population of Libya is one of the most pro-U.S. Populations in the Mideast, over 50% saying that they approve of U.S. leadership in the area.
They're an ally, but the question is, who is our bigger ally there? Is our ally Haftar, who claims to be ridding it of Islamist terrorists?
Yeah.
But we're allied with the government, who he is obviously a significant threat to.
What would be nice is if we could get a little bit more U.S. press attention on the area there. CNN, for instance, has shown that they will go into great depths to find out about lost planes. Well, apparently some planes have been lost to the rebel forces in Libya. Why not you investigate that?